On the line with Robert Reinhardt from Bloggers Oh Dear. It's the SB Nation platform for Wake Forest athletics, and we're talking football, of course, heading into 2017 with the opener just a few weeks away against Presbyterian. So, Robert, you kind of brushed through the schedule and said, maybe I got a concern there with the schedule. And as I look at it, and shameless plug here, I'm ranking the schedule 68 all the way up to number 1. Can't remember off the top of my head where I have the Deacons, but it's somewhere in the 45 to 50 range. So, of course, in the ACC, you get 14 teams, so you've got a possible 13 opponents. You're only going to play 8, so you play your division, which you have that twosome that's as difficult as any in the nation with Florida State and Clemson, and to a lesser degree Louisville and NC State to deal with. And even BC made a bowl game last year and were pretty impressive defensively in doing so. So it's all about who do you play on the other side. You have to deal with, let's say, North Carolina in a good year and Miami. It's Georgia Tech, and, of course, you always play Duke. So that doesn't seem to be a horrible draw. But you do have the Notre Dame game to deal with outside of conference, and a Utah State team that's not necessarily been good the last year or two, but with a good track record under their head coach, Matt Wells.
Yeah, it's an interesting schedule, and we have to play Florida State and Clemson in back-to-back weeks. So there's not going to be a harder stretch in the country than that. And I think part of it's just sort of the way that the games are clustered together. We start off with Presbyterian, BC, Utah State, App State. So it's possible we go 4-0 in those games, 3-1, but then you're looking at FSU at Clemson. Fortunately, we get a bye week before we play Georgia Tech, so that could be helpful, though it's at Georgia Tech. Then Louisville at Notre Dame. So that's a pretty significant gauntlet there. And honestly, I'm hoping injuries really don't build up and you compound yourself one week after the other. Then you get back to it being manageable again at Syracuse, so harder to have to go there, and we're also at BC in the start. And then NC State, a very good team. I know, they only went 7-6 or something like that last year, but a lot of the metrics have them as roughly a top 25, 30 team. So they're definitely talented. I think NC State has really separated there's Florida State and Clemson, then I think Louisville on its own tier, and then I think NC State is on their own tier as well in terms of the Atlantic, and then we close with Duke. So, it's not an easy schedule. It's manageable, but I think it's a lot harder than last year. We replaced a home game with Army with a trip to App State, who played very well at Tennessee last year, and we replace at Indiana with at Notre Dame. So flip BC and Syracuse, have them both on the road. So it's going to be tough. It's manageable, but we're going to have to get off to a very good start.
So Wake Forest is going to App State to take on Appalachian State on the road at the end of September. That is no pushover game. So that's a sneaky, difficult trip to make right there.
It is, and I think if you look at some of the metrics and early betting lines, I think they're going to be about maybe a 1-point favorite or so. And they're a similar team to Wake in that they're a very good defensive team and they run the ball. So it's sort of going to be a clash of styles. But I think that game's already sold out pretty much. Wake isn't typically a huge draw for when we're an away opponent, but with us both being in state only about an hour and a half apart, and honestly, a lot of App fans are also Wake fans, so a lot of overlap there. Should be a great atmosphere.
Yeah, you always look at these schedules and try to add them up and figure out, okay, well, we need to do this and during this stretch, and it's you got that collection of teams that are very comparable to you, Duke, Syracuse, BC. And even out of conference, when you mention App State, and you're thinking, okay, well, how do we do against that collection? And then do we steal one against an NC State or a Georgia Tech? If we don't, we definitely need to hold serve against Syracuse and BC in our own division. And, it's going to be another tightrope to get to postseason play. It looks like, man, we probably should be at 5-4 after the Notre Dame game to give ourselves a chance to hopefully go 2-1 the last 3 weeks to get to 6-6.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to be 5-4 in that stretch. If we're 4-5, it's manageable. I think we can definitely, we can win at Syracuse. We were fortunate last year. We played that up-tempo offense in a hurricane. So I won't act like we didn't benefit a little bit from that. But yeah, NC State, even though we get them at home, I think we'll be, 3-4 point underdogs in that one. And then Duke, I feel good about that game, though. they're definitely a solid team. So I think we could win 2 of those 3, but I think we're really going to need to be at least 4 and 5 headed in that stretch. For 5 and 4, I feel very good about our bowl chances headed into those final 3 games.
All right, Wake Forest, lightly regarded in 2016, made it to postseason play and then made it pay off with a big win over Temple. And we, of course, always enjoy the conversation with Robert Reinhardt from Blogger So Dear. Join him there on the SB Nation platform for the Demon Deacons. Robert, we appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mark. Always enjoy it.